Chapter 1. The Atchafalaya River flows south from a small Louisiana town called Simmsport, where, in the 15th century, it branched off the Mississippi. The river runs to the Gulf of Mexico, traveling 137 miles through a triangle that Louisiana locals call Acadiana. The name recalls Acadia, the bygone French colony in northeastern North America. There, starting in 1755, thousands of French exiles were driven from their homes. They began, 9 years later, to settle along a Louisiana river 2,000 miles to the southwest. No locks or levees or dams yet harnessed the young river, and the Acadians, as those early Americans would be called, though they dug furrows and ditches beside the river and set their huts atop blocks of cypress, often found themselves in water. If the river flooded, it also bore crawfish and silt, the sediment-feeding crops of soybean and indigo. More crops followed: tobacco, cotton, maize, molasses, sugar. The Acadians soon owned plantations and people, too. Africans working their fields, breastfeeding their young. Their community grew. By the early 19th century, there were roughly 5,000 Acadians in Louisiana. They gave its marshes and bayous and prairies French names: Prairie Basse, Prairie de Femme, Prairie de Coteau. Francophone and Catholic, the Acadians took to the South, to its fiddles and faith healers, its Spanish moss and slavery. By 1860, 49 Acadians owned more than 50 slaves each. But they were no patriots. Flags changed. The Acadians had already seen the French, Spanish, and Americans govern this land. When the Confederate Army conscripted their men, the Acadian soldier was all but indifferent to the cause. Some surrendered, some deserted. When the war ended, the Acadians had lost their slaves and infrastructure, and many became fishermen or trappers or lumberjacks. But having previously filled steamboats and trains with produce for export, they now struggled to feed their own. Poverty took hold. Starvation was endemic. Alcoholism, too. More and more, as historian Carl Brasseau noted, Acadians came to be thought of as primitive, as ignorant, as Cajun, the word a derisive variant of Acadian. Reconstruction did little to lift the Acadian parishes. They remained in a deep recession well into the 20th century.